The tales of Viking brides and the horrors they endured on their wedding night are shocking enough that many women would rather die than marry a Viking. You will learn the truth about Viking romance and what it really was all about. It reveals the horrific blood rituals which left the brides permanently scarred for life, humiliating public ceremonies that destroyed their spirit, and horrible bedroom customs that most current historians refuse to acknowledge. There was no love in these relationships, just survival. I will discuss the 5 most gruesome wedding night customs Viking women experienced, and how many lived in total fear of their wedding day. If you enjoy uncovering the truth about what history has kept secret, hit subscribe. New forbidden stories every day. The rituals marking the transition from maidenhood to marriage. The future bride underwent these rituals to symbolically signify the transition from maiden to wife. These rituals were not only a transition in status, but rather they were a clearly defined publicly and psychologically. The process of transitioning from maidenhood to wifehood started at the bathhouse, where a future bride would customarily go with her mother, married friends, and close female relatives. The bathhouse was the location for the future bride to have the ritual cleansing done to her, as a way to remove everything associated with her life as a maiden. This cleansing was far more than just a spa day for the bride-to-be. It provided an opportunity for the older women to teach the newlywed bride the responsibilities of a wife, how to manage a household, how to fulfill religious obligations, and how to live in accordance with her husband's authority. In most cases, removing the bride's maidenhood symbols was considered to be one of the most sacred aspects of pre-wedding rituals. Young women who have not yet been married often wore a cran in their hair as a public reminder that they are virgins. The cran was taken off in a formal ceremony at a bathhouse during a special ritual known as the bathhouse ceremony. The cran was then placed inside a box for future use, when the woman would hopefully someday have her own daughter to give a cran to. The wedding crown signified a new generation in the bride's family, and the bride was expected to have a family of her own and continue the lineage of the bride's family. Also, the wedding crown also represented not only the bride's marital status, but the entire lineage she was marrying into. Not only was this about new headgear, it was a clear change in social status and signified that the unmarried girl is transitioning to a wife. The marriage contract. While the bride is in the process of becoming a wife, at time of her becoming, when marriage was being conducted, marriages were considered primarily an economic relationship before anything else. Marriage was a way for most Vikings belonging to the land-holding elite classes to solidify and establish political links between families, to combine financial assets and establish a network of support through marriage. As a result, there was an expectation of business-related behaviors. The marriage feast, or Brud-kaup, was the name given to the process of negotiating the marriage. These negotiations were conducted not between the couple, but between the groom's family and either the bride's father or the appointed guardian of the bride. These negotiations would discuss 2 main types of financial transactions. The first transaction was referred to as the murderer or bride price. This transaction was not considered a purchase of the bride, but rather a monetary or goods compensation paid by the groom's family to the bride's family for the loss of her labor and to transfer responsibility of the bride's safety to the groom. The second transaction was the dowry or hymenophilia. This transaction represented a portion of the bride's inheritance from her own family that was intended to provide for establishing the couple's new home. Once all of the financial arrangements had been finalized, the marriage arrangement was considered completed. So, was consent from the bride required? It is complicated. Some marriage arrangements were not ruled by law. Nonetheless, the sagas recount various disastrous marriages based on the disregard for a woman's desires. In many instances, fathers consulted daughters' opinions prior to making marriage arrangements. However, the weight of social expectation to wed strategically for the family's benefit was enormous. To think that the entirety of your life was determined while you were not present in the same room, making an agreement as to how you would be used as an important part of the family alliance, is unfathomable. When a couple enters into a contract with their gods and the laws of man, they are committing themselves to one another in marriage, with their wedding day typically taking place on a Friday, the day of the goddess of marriage, Free. The wedding ceremony was a public display that combined the weight of the laws of man with the will of the gods. Prior to the marriage being sanctioned by the gods, the bride price and dowry were exchanged in a formal exchange with witnesses present. Following this exchange, a ritual sacrifice, plot bibero, could take place. For the ritual sacrifice, an animal associated with a fertility deity, such as a goat for Thor or a boar for Frey, was typically sacrificed. The priest, Guti, would use fir twigs to sprinkle the animal's blood upon the couple in order to bind them together in the eyes of the gods. Next, the couple exchanged their ancestral swords. The groom presented the bride with a sword, which she would keep for their future sons. In exchange, the bride's family would give the groom a sword belonging to her ancestors, which represented that the protection of the bride was now the groom's responsibility. Finally, rings were exchanged as a part of the marriage ceremony, either on the hilts of the new swords. In the end, a semi-permanent effigy of Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, was placed upon the bride's lap as an indication of what was anticipated of her through a prayer for fertility and healthy offspring, a direct reference to the thunder god's strength. This was also a public reference to her male counterpart's virility and an open reminder of the physical obligations expected to be fulfilled that evening. The last public announcement. After the ceremony and reception were completed, the final section of the wedding that finalized it legally was the consummation of the marriage. In the Viking era, the marriage was not completely legal until it was physically consummated. Therefore, there had to be something to prevent future disputes in case someone claimed that there wasn't a consummation. So, at the completion of the night, the groom was escorted by at least 6 witnesses, typically men of rank and family, in a torchlight procession to the bridal chamber. The purpose of these witnesses was to verify by sight that the couple went into the nuptial bedroom together so that no one could claim that this was not the case, thus protecting both the couple and their children from future legal claim and disputes regarding paternity. Many of the sources for this event that people find online falsely state that the witnesses would have remained in the bedroom during the consummation. However, this would have been virtually impossible for the reasons noted above, i.e., the mere act of the witnesses seeing the party enter the bedroom was all that is necessary for legal purposes. For a young female who just finished a long series of difficult preparatory activities, having to perform one more public act would have been an unsettling end. It wasn't about intimacy, but about fulfilling a cold legal requirement, a final witnessed act to validate the contract and eliminate any possibility of future dispute. Gifts are given to brides after consummation and usually consist of gifts of property, wealth, livestock, or even rights to a field. This is called a mourning gift. This mourning gift, by someone who has consummated the marriage, ensures her future as long as she is married to the husband of the household where she receives the mourning gift. When marrying a Viking, women received keys to the household along with the mourning gift, as stated in various graves and monuments. Having keys showed the transfer of responsibility for stores, chests, and locks from husband to wife. If a woman's household suffered losses, she was responsible. However, receiving keys also elevated the status of women in society and affirmed their role and rights within the household. The way provisions have been mismanaged or even suspected dishonesty could ruin not only her reputation, but also her family's relationships with other families. It is easy to see how much stress there is for someone on this day. After a legally witnessed consummation, when they woke up that morning and saw a gift that would last longer than their husband, They would feel the weight of heavy iron keys resting in their palm, giving them both power and a certain amount of protection. But it also signified that the family had been given exclusive access through one door and is now responsible for that door.
A Viking wedding was not just a wedding. It was an event that publicly confirmed and changed the social and legal status of the bride. First, the bride had to wash away her maiden identity through rites of passage before beginning her new life as a married woman. Second, the bride was an important part of a strategically negotiated contract for her family and clan's benefit. Third, the wedding ceremony was an intimidating event because it was filled with a tremendous amount of divine and legal pressure, as well as ongoing responsibilities for the bride to bear children. Fourth, the bride was escorted to her bedchamber at the end of the wedding night, which was a legally mandating and observed act to validate a contract that she nearly had no voice in. The actual history of the Vikings and their lifestyle will continue to reveal complex and at times shocking revelations. If you are interested in finding out more about these hidden histories, please subscribe to our channel and turn on your notification bell. Let us know in the comments which of the rituals listed in this article you found to be the most shocking.